Welcome in the Matt Bernier Show, DRF TV, live.drf.com, livestream.com, the Daily Racing Forms Twitter handle. That would be at DRF Inside Post, as well as the Daily Racing Forms Facebook page. My name is Matt Bernier. You can follow me on Twitter, at Bernier_Matt. This is the preview edition of the Matt Bernier Show, looking at some races coming up this upcoming Saturday on February the 24th. We'll have one from Gulfstream Park, two from Santa Anita, both of them stakes races going down the hill. But as we always do this time of year, we need to talk about what's to come with the three-year-olds. Again, if you're watching this live, live.drf.com, livestream.com, and the Daily Racing Form social media pages. If you listen to it like most of you do in podcast version, you've got YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com. This time of year is dominated by the three-year-olds, and this weekend, not a lot going on with the three-year-olds as far as stakes races and Derby preps are concerned. So probably no better time than now to assess the top 20 leaderboard and where things stand with a number of these runners. It's worth noting as we throw up the top 20 leaderboard, there is a bit of a tie for a number of horses in here. So keep in mind, it's 20, but you can go deeper than that because you got a number of horses that are tied with 10 points, and you got some horses that technically, at this point, they're not actually nominated. You've got a spot reserved in the gate for the Road to the Kentucky Derby from Japan winner. I believe the horse is called Sumahama. Could be wrong. Don't quote me on that, but I believe he's the one that is ready to go. There's also going to be a spot occupied from a European sort of Road to the Derby winner. So really, we're only talking about the top 18 because the top 20, guess what? If you're 19 or 20 this year, you're on the outside looking in. But as you can see here, we know what Bravazzo did this past weekend down in Louisiana. We know what a couple of these horses are capable of doing on their best day. A horse like My Boy Jack, he burst onto the scene, and now he's squarely in the thick of things with his win in the Southwest on President's Day down at Oaklawn Park. But that was over a sloppy track, and that was over a golden rail, which this horse rode the entire way. In the past, I've gone through and said at this time of the year, if you are in the top 20, you're in pretty good position because it seems very likely that this is what the leaderboard is going to look like. You're not going to get a ton of movement, either for better or for worse. This year feels slightly different because you've got a number of horses and highly rated and highly ranked horses that have yet to make their three-year-old debuts. With a horse like Good Magic for Chad Brown. He was the two-year-old champion. We have not seen him yet as a three-year-old. A horse like Bolt Doro, the runner-up in the two-year-old champion sort of voting for the Eclipse Award. He's yet to make his three-year-old debut. Just because they're working, that's all well and good, but you got to see them out on the racetrack and see what they look like. Similar situation to Solomini. Solomini is one of the more highly regarded three-year-olds. We haven't seen him yet. He's worked 3 times, but that doesn't mean that we're going to get the best of the best out of him when he comes back to the races. And now you're talking about squeezing a lot into a short amount of time. I know this just seems to be the modern way to do things as far as preps for the Kentucky Derby, 1 or 2 preps and then go from there. Boy, you're asking a lot of some of these horses where maybe they're going to be having a 5-month layoff or a 4-month layoff. Give them 1 good prep and then get ready for the Derby, or maybe 2 at most. You better hope that there are no hiccups at this point for any of these horses, and you better hope that they come back just as good, if not better, than they were when we last saw them. A horse like Bravazzo, maybe he's not a superstar, maybe he is, I don't know. But at the same time, at least you know he's in good form, he's running, he's consistent, he's showing up, and he continues to take little steps forward. A horse like Firenze Fire, he's a nice horse, he's an honest horse, shows up and runs his race. The question now becomes, is distance actually going to be beneficial for him? I think many people, myself included, believe that ultimately he's going to be a middle distance horse, 1 turn preferably at a mile, maybe even 7/8 of a mile. I could see him being a Pat Day mile type. Woody Stevens, Kings Bishop, now the Alan Jerkins. So there's a lot still to be sorted out with this top 20 or top 18, however you'd like to fashion it, simply because this year it feels like things are a little bit topsy-turvy, and you've got some horses in there that still need to prove that they belong in there. You've also got some horses in there that there are some serious questions that need to be answered. Where are we with Catholic Boy? I thought his run in the Sam F. Davis was fine. I don't think it was spectacular. Certainly something he can move forward off of. To me, he looked like he was a little bit of a short horse in there. But you've also got names in here that, or I shouldn't say names in here, maybe horses that are going to be making their presence felt. Maybe you do get a horse like Noble Indy who comes back. He's 19th right now at 10 points. maybe all of a sudden with a little bit more racing. He's only run 3 times. If he comes back, whether it is the Louisiana Derby or it's somewhere else, maybe all of a sudden he shows up in a big, big way. Magnum Moon, the highly regarded maiden winner for Todd Pletcher. It sounds like he's going to show up in Oaklawn at some point here in the near future. Maybe he shows up with a big run, puts himself in position. The other thing to consider, again, I know in the past I've said that this is how things are probably going to look 2 months from now, 2.5, 3 months from now. It feels like of all the years with the unknowns from the big boys, are they ready to go? Where are they as far as fitness is concerned, as far as soundness is concerned? Are they going to take that step forward from 2 to 3, which most of them do, but there's no guarantee that they're going to. Until they answer all those questions, or some of the questions anyway, now you start getting into those bigger point races where you're going to get 50 points that go to the winner, and that all basically locks up your spot in the starting gate the first Saturday in May at Churchill Downs. I just think there's a lot of things that still need to be ironed out, and I've been one of the people that champions the idea that this list that you see right now in the final week of February probably going to look very, very similar to what you see come the first Saturday in May. This year, maybe a little bit of an anomaly. Maybe things are going to be a little bit topsy-turvy right up until those final preps, and we see what happens there leading into the Kentucky Derby. But right now, I guess at the very least, all you can say is that these seem to be rather talented 3-year-olds. They also seem to be a little bit, I don't want to say inconsistent, but they'll throw in a couple of little curveballs at you. But I think the good news is it seems like whenever they do throw a curveball, one of the more established horses, it means that someone else has come up with a bigger and better effort, and they continue to improve. As a whole, I still think at this point in the game, and you know I've said it in the past, way too early to be judging these horses as far as the crop is concerned based on just a handful of races. Thus far, at this point right now, feels like a pretty good group. Feels like you got some good runners, and potentially the best is still yet to come because we haven't had the return of the 2-year-old champion and the 2-year-old runner-up as far as champion is concerned, and a horse like Solomini who was taken down from a grade 1 as a 2-year-old. So you've got good horses that are still yet to come back, and maybe they'll make their presence felt. Hopefully they're going to be just as good, if not better, than when we last saw them. So a little bit of a look there at the top 20 leaderboard as things stand right now. As far as this weekend in racing is concerned, let's dive into a couple of races. Let's start off down in South Florida with the Hal's Hope. First of 3 races to dive into for this upcoming Saturday. We're going to take a look at the Hal's Hope. This is a Grade 3 event down at Gulfstream Park on Saturday afternoon. Scheduled post is 5:35 Eastern. You know, the folks down at Gulfstream, take that with a grain of salt. It's probably going to be significantly later. Here is the field. If you're new to this show, on the far right side of the screen, my odds, a value line, not a morning line. This is what I think would be a fair number if you were going to try to play any of these horses to win. In post position order, the number 1 Irish Warcry, a newly turned 4-year-old, will be taking on Elders for the first time in his career. I made him 4-1. The number 2 Economic Model for Chad Brown. He's a nice horse. He has had a spotty racing record over the past year and change. Seems like there is layoff after layoff after layoff, but when he shows up, he's usually very good. 5-1. The number 3 Conquest Big E. This is a horse that goes out for Donna Green. I think he's a little bit under the radar, and based on that run in the Fred Hooper most recently, he does fit in here with the puncher's chance. I made him 4-1. Tower of Texas, very talented horse for Roger Ratfield. Don't think that dirt is his game. It's going to be the first time, whether it's fast or dry, or wet rather, for Tower of Texas trying the main track. I want no part of him here. 32-1. Quixote, 49-1 for Armando de la Cerda. Just seems like he's a little bit overmatched in here. Malagacy for Todd Pletcher. I expected a heck of a lot more in that return effort down at Gulfstream that was on January the 18th. And to make matters worse, boy, that race has come back very, very poor. I don't really want much part of him either. I made him 5-1. The number 7 is Giuseppe the Great for Nick Zito. I think this is his game, a 1-turn mile. Come from the back of the pack. The blinkers go on. Still don't think it's going to be enough for him to truly make some sort of difference. I wonder if he's best used underneath, if at all. Made him 13-1. And the number 8, Send It In. Look, from a speed figure standpoint, he might be the best horse in the race, but considering the long layoff, we haven't seen him in almost 9 months, and you consider that it seems like he's done his best going at longer distances. I made him 6-1. He may be one that wherever he shows up in his second start off the bench, he may be the one that you would like, though. As far as the pick and the play is concerned for me with this race in the Hal's Hope, I've kind of tipped my hand a little bit. I really think that this horse, the number 3 in here, Conquest Big E, is better than maybe he gets credit for, and possibly it's because of the low-profile connections. We're going to take a look back at his most recent run. This was him giving Tommy Macho everything he could handle in the Fred Hooper.
10-3. Up front, Luis Saez shakes up Tommy Macho and has to deal with Conquest Biggie on the outside. These two shoulder to shoulder for an eighth of a mile more. Inside, Tommy Macho gamely hanging on to the lead. One more time in Conquest Biggie. Tommy Macho's almost there and he'll win it. It's Tommy Macho to win the Fred Hooper 3 parts of a length. Second, Conquest Biggie. Third was Tale of Silence, followed by Giuseppe.
And we know if Tommy Macho was in this race, he would be one of, if not the outright favorite for Pletcher. That was the best Tommy Macho has looked in, I'm not kidding, years. He did everything right the way they were supposed to, whereas in the past, you know, he's hung on his left lead. We know that he's had some physical issues. Now it seems like he's running the best that he's ever run, and we'll find out wherever he shows up next. Conquest Biggie, he ran a winning race in that spot. There was a country mile between him and the third place finisher. It was about 4.5 lengths back to Tale of Silence. I think Conquest Big E is going to slip through the cracks a little bit in here. He's 4-1 on my value line, and I think that's fair as far as the play is concerned. I'll play $20 to win on Conquest Big E at odds of 4-1 or greater, and just in case, as I'm sure some of you have come back to realize, I like to play the saver a little bit just in case my horse runs well but doesn't run well enough. I want to use him underneath with a couple other runners, so I will play $10 exactas with the 1 and the 2, Irish War Cry and Economic Model on top, with my top pick in here, the number 3 Conquest Big E underneath. Those are $10 exactas. So wrap things up. The pick for me is Conquest Big E in the How's Hope. The wager's $20 to win on him, $10 exacta with the 1 and 2 on top, those being Irish War Cry and Economic Model, and Conquest Big E running second. The first of 2 at Santa Anita as far as stakes are concerned on Saturday afternoon. The Grade 3 Daytona 6.5 going down the hill. That's the same sort of distance and surface as the other stakes race, which we'll get to momentarily. First things first, the graded variety. This is a small field. You've only got 7 that are going to go, but boy, you want to talk about loaded. This is the field here, again, on the far right, my value line. The number 1 is Fabazzi. Made him 19-1. I think Fabazzi's a nice horse. Middle distance, though, seems to be more in his wheelhouse. I wonder if this is nothing more than a means to an end, a starting point, because you'll note that he has not been seen since April of 2017. The number 2 is Tom Boleyn for Catherine Day Phillips. Mike Smith has the mount. I think this is an interesting horse in this spot, 8-1 on my value line. I thought that most recent run at Gulfstream Park, going 5/8 of a mile, not nearly as bad as it looks on paper. He's just completely outrun. That's not what he wants to do. He's much more of a, let's say, a longer sprinter. I understand maybe that doesn't sound right, but, you know, the 5/8 of a mile is just far too sharp. You see the way that he had been running up at Woodbine, 7/8 of a mile, 6 furlongs. Now you get 6.5, and even at Woodbine he was going 1-turn miles, but 6.5 down the hill. I think this is going to really set up nicely for this horse. If you're looking for a little bit of a live long shot, maybe Tom Boleyn, I made him 8-1. Number 3 is What a View for Kenny Black. I think this is a nice horse, but again, we haven't seen him since June of last year, and all of his races, it seems like he's really kind of a middle distance flat mile or just drop the hammer and go. I kind of feel like this is, again, nothing more than a means to an end. Let's get a race into him, move forward. You've got races coming up like the Shoemaker Mile in a few months. He's not going to be ready for the Kilroe. I can't imagine the Kilroe is going to be in about 2 weeks at this point. So I'd be surprised if they wheel him back for that. But you know that they're willing to ship him as well. He's gone out to Keeneland in the past. I think this is nothing more than a means to an end. 12-1 for What a View. Number 4, Conquest Tsunami. Maybe he is the now horse for Peter Miller. His first time going down the hill here at Santa Anita most recently. Big effort, but all things considered, he walked on the front end. You're never going to see an easier lead going down the hill at Santa Anita. I understand he earned that 99 buyer speed figure, and he also earned the 121 Timeform US rating, but there's just a part of me that looks at it and says, you're never going to get an easier situation, an easier setup than he got that day. 8-1, he's going to need to work a lot harder if he's going to win here in the Daytona. The number 5 is Calculator, another one of Miller's entrants. He has 3 in here. I made him 3-1. I think Calculator is arguably the horse to beat, along with his uncoupled stablemate on the outside, who we'll talk about momentarily, but Calculator, I have no knocks against him. I just have no idea where that speed came from in that most recent start in the Clocker's Corner. This has always been a horse that's come from a few lengths out of it, a little bit tardy out of the gate. It's not as though he was very sharp braking most recently. That was on January the 28th. But he quickly got himself into the race. Flavian Pratt did a beautiful job. He's at legitimate fractions, that 20-4 going down for the opening quarter. Even for the hill, that's fast going down there, and he stayed on and finished well. He's 3 for 3 down the hill. Throw him out at your own peril. The number 6 is Perfectly Majestic. I think he's a nice horse. I thought he ran very well in that Clocker's Corner. To me, it looked like a horse that loomed up on the outside in that layoff because he had not been seen since July of last year. I think the layoff got to him a little bit at the end, considering how fast they were going. I wonder now you're going to get a tighter horse second off the bench for Bob Hess Jr. You get DeSormo, he stays aboard. And maybe if you get some more pace in front of him, because I think there are going to be horses that want to go, maybe Perfectly Majestic is sitting on a big effort here. As far as my odds are concerned, I made him 5-1. And the number 7 is Stormy Liberal in here. He is the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint winner, the reigning champion of that race. Forget about the run over in Hong Kong. Draw a line through that. He was 83-1 that day. It comes back. You know that this distance, this is his friend. He's 7 for 12 going down the hill. I thought he had a beautiful trip in the turf sprint. I thought Rosario did everything perfectly. Rosario ships in to ride him going down the hill. That outside post, he has options. He can go. He can sit. I think Stormy Liberal is, like I said, with Calculator, the horse to beat. Peter Miller really has all the cards in this race. As far as the pick is concerned, though, for me, I think with Calculator speed, I think with Conquest Tsunami speed, I think with What a View's speed, I think there's a scenario where they could line up. Maybe one of these horses is just naturally faster than everybody else, but if they go down and they throw it down early and you get a 21-1 opening quarter mile, I think Perfectly Majestic can sit a little bit. He can take that breather that he needs and come with that late kick. I think second off the bench, you're going to have a much tighter animal this time around for Hess and DeSormo. Perfectly Majestic is my pick as far as the play is concerned. $20 to win on him at 5-1 or greater. He's going to be probably in that ballpark, I would imagine. I can't imagine him taking much more money than that with the other big names in this spot. And as far as the play for the exacta is concerned, $10 exactas, I want to use the 5 and the 7, Calculator and Stormy Liberal. And, you know, I talk about Calculator and I talk about Perfectly Majestic. We're going to take a look at the replay right now. This is Calculator getting the job done with that ballistic pace, how fast he went early on. But you're going to notice, take a look, and Michael Rona even makes mention, Perfectly Majestic's got a puncher's chance. This is the stretch run.
Gold Cap, Fly to Mars the inside, Sycamore Lane very wide, then Jimmy Bouncer, 3/16 from home, it's Calculator from the critical way, Perfectly Majestic, Fly to Mars on the inside, Calculator arriving at the 16th pole, a 1-length leader from Fly to Mars and Perfectly Majestic, it's Calculator still in front, Calculator the leader from Perfectly Majestic and Fly to Mars, and Calculator 3 for 3 down the hill, Fly to Mars getting into second.
If I get a replay of that event, where you've got Calculator out there, and now you've got Stormy Liberal pushing him, and you've got Conquest Tsunami pushing him, and possibly What Have You pushing him, I think Perfectly Majestic now, again, off the bench. I think you're going to get a fitter horse second off the bench. I think DeSormo is going to put him in a beautiful position. Give me every bit of Perfectly Majestic at 5-1 or greater, along with those saver exactas with the 5 Calculator and the 7 Stormy Liberal on top of him. Nightcap at Santa Anita is the third and final race we'll take a look at here on this week's preview edition of the Matt Bernier Show. It's the Wishing Well. It's a restricted stakes race going down the hill, 6.5 furlongs. Here is the field. The number 1, Princess. I've made her 32-1. It's hard for me to get past a horse that's run 22 times and 9 times has run second or third. Underneath only for me. The number 2, Miss Southern Miss for Keith and Kent DeSormo. She is a nice filly. I think she can do a lot of things, particularly down the hill. I was disappointed how long it took her to get back to her best, but now it seems like that she is. I thought that most recent run in the non-winners of 2 other than was strong, but she's facing better horses and she's going to need to step her game up. Made her 8-1. The number 3, Kayathe for Bill Morey. Look, Morey's barn is just really, really strong right now, rolling along. Problem is, I just don't see any race on this filly's page or this mare's page that makes her a real contender in here. Made her 49-1. Number 4 is Bendable for Richard Mandel and Mike Smith. Thought the turf debut was good enough in the Las Ciennegas going down the hill. I think she can build on that. Throw her out at your own, your own volition, just simply because I don't think that she deserves to be one of the shorter prices in here. I think she should be 5, 6, 7-1. I made her 5-1, but I think she's going to be shorter than that, and that's why I'm always going to be against a horse like Bendable, particularly after she looked as good as she did in that most recent run. If she takes a step forward, she's certainly a horse to beat in here, but I've never loved her, and I just kind of want to side against her. The number 5 is Samba Inc., and in many ways, this race revolves around Samba Inc. for Bob Baffert and Juddmonte. She hasn't been seen since May of 2017 when she was winning a Grade 1 or a Group 1 down in Argentina by the length of the stretch. Visually, I would encourage anyone to go onto YouTube and find the replay. She was awesome that day. It was over heavy ground. If you think she's ready to fire, there's a real chance that she's simply 10 times better than any of the other girls in this race. And if that's the case, maybe she could be their big middle distance horse this year. And I say they, meaning Juddmonte. Maybe she could be a monster. It sounds like she's working just guns blazing, ready to go. You know what? I'm not going to be surprised at all if she puts on a show. But there's a part of me that thinks that she's going to be overbet. I made her 3-1. The number 6 is Anita Partner, a mare that I've always liked. I think this is what she wants to do. I was disappointed in Las Ciénegas. I liked her. She came from off the pace that day. She had a little bit of traffic at the top of the lane, but she never really packed any punch. She's going to need to take a big, serious step forward second off the bench if she is going to threaten at any point. I made her 13-1. The number 7 is Gliding By for Richard Baltas and Rafael Bejarano. Haven't seen her since before New Year's. Now she is a 5-year-old mare. I don't know if she's good enough to win this race, but it is worth noting. The most recent time she sprinted on turf, that was on Woodbine in July of 2017, she was victorious. The number 8, I'm sorry, I made her 16-1. Number 8 is Malibu Stacy. I've made her 8-1. I kind of feel like this is a horse that you turn her back, finally get her to a sprint going down the hill. She's got some tactical speed. Maybe that can make the difference in here. I think she is an interesting player in this spot again. 8-1 for Malibu Stacy. The number 9, Barbara Beatrice. 32-1 for Phil D'Amato. I just simply put, I don't think she's good enough. The 10, Algorithmic. This was a horse before she went away for a long, long time. Boy, was she rock solid going down the hill. Once Mike Mikowski got a hold of her, she just turned into a different mare. The problem is, past 5 years, turf, 180-plus day layoff in sprints for Mike Mikowski, 1 for 19 with a 59-cent ROI. I will be sitting back and watching. I think that she's very, very good. I respect her, but I think she's going to need one. I made her 6-1. And the far outside, the number 11 Mongolian Shopper, I've made her 49-1 for Anesh Ganbat. This is a horse, look, she's run very well. She's 2 for 2 going down the hill. Always dangerous with horses. This is the ultimate horse for course trip, going 6.5 down the hill at Santa Anita. Having said that, at face value on figures alone, she's not fast enough to win a race like this. My pick and my play in this race, I acknowledge that I think Samba Inc. is the key to the race. If she shows up with anything close to what we had seen back in May of last year down in Argentina, she's probably just going to win. She's probably better than these girls. But having said that, I've loved Malibu Stacy for quite some time. She has the pedigree to be a turf horse. I think that run in the Kalukan Queen was nothing more than a means to an end, a stopgap, get a race into her off the layoff. If she runs the Goldacova, and I know this sounds a little bit odd because the Goldacova was at a mile and it was at Del Mar. If she runs the Goldacova, I think she got a big chance because the turn back in distance, I don't think she's going to be outrun, but I don't think she's going to be on the pace. I think she's going to sit that beautiful sort of stalking trip. And maybe she's not good enough, but I know that she has some buyers on her page that make her competitive in here. I think she's going to be a good number. I made her 8-1. I will play $10 to win on her at 8-1 or greater, and I will also play a straight $10 exacta with Samba Inc. in first and Malibu Stacy in second, just in case Samba Inc. is the goods, is the bee's knees, and Malibu Stacy still runs, and she's just simply not good enough to get the job done. My pick in the wishing well, Malibu Stacy. My play, 10 to win on Malibu Stacy, and a $10 straight exacta of Samba Inc. over Malibu Stacy. Those are the 3 races that we'll go over for this week's show. If you've been watching live, thank you for doing so. Live.drf.com, livestream.com, the Daily Racing Forms Twitter handle. That would be at DRF Inside Post, as well as the Daily Racing Forms Facebook page. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can holler at me. You can say I'm great. You can say I'm terrible. Whatever you'd like to say. If you want to have any recommendations for backdrop here, fire away at Bernier_Matt. If you listen to a podcast like most of you do, YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com. We'll be back on Tuesday with the recap show. We will go over some of these stakes races from this weekend. Maybe we'll also take a look forward to some things that may be coming up ahead of time, and as we normally do, we'll give you the weekend's best performances. If you've been watching live on Friday here, you've already seen the DRF Players podcast. So if you listen to the boys, Peter Thomas Fornatel, Jonathan Kinchin, you've watched this show, and as we always do, we lead into the latest edition of Out of the Gate with the entire gang, going over some of the biggest and best races this upcoming weekend. Best of luck, however you're playing, wherever you're playing, whatever you're playing this weekend. We'll chat again with the recap edition of the Matt Bernier Show early next week. Good luck this weekend.